العلم أشراف مطلوب وطالبه لله أكرام من يمشي على قدمه. العلم نور مبين يستضيء به أهل السعادات والجهال في الظلم.
The evidence for this qaida, دليل قاعدة, the evidence for this qaida or the evidences are many. From them, the verse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 233, وَالْوَالِدَاتُ يُرْضِعْنَ أَوْلَادَهُنَّ حَوْلَيْنِ كَامِلَيْنِ لمن أراد أن يتم الرضاعة وعلى المولود له رزقهن وكسوتهن بالمعروف. That is the محل الشاهد. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the breastfeeding of the small child, it being 2 years for the person who wishes to complete the رضاعة, the nursing period. وعلى المولود له رزقهن وكسوتهن بالمعروف. And it is upon the father to provide, in terms of according to what is acceptable, to provide provisions for the mother and the child, provide clothing and provision for the child. Bil ma'ruf, according to what is acceptable, according to what is known, according to what is acceptable in the community. Right. Allah Jalla wa Ala also says, وَعَاشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, and maintain with them or live with them and stay with them bil-ma'ruf, upon goodness, that which is acceptable and known. Allah says in Surah An-Nisa, verse number 19. Right. Allah also subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Baqarah, this is also from the evidences, and in reality we're looking for the lafz bil-ma'ruf, acceptable, or which is accustomed with, what people are acquainted with or used to. وَإِذَا طَلَّقْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ فَبَلَغْنَ أَجَلَهُنَّ فَأَمْسِكُوهُنَّ بِمَعْرُوفٍ أَوْ سَرِّحُوهُنَّ بِمَعْرُوفٍ. Allah Jalla wa Ala says that if they reach their waiting period, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says either hold on to them and keep them upon goodness and that which is acceptable, or let them go, set them free, divorce them with goodness, that which is acceptable. Right. Also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَمَتِّعُوهُنَّ عَلَى الْمُوسِعِ قَدْرُهُ وَعَلَى الْمُقْتِرِ قَدْرُهُ مَتَاعًا بِالْمَعْرُوفِ حَقًّا عَلَى الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about in Surah Al-Baqarah, the verses dealing with talaq. Then if talaq does happen, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands the man, and the scholars differ whether it's wajib or sunnah, lakin commands the man to give a suitable gift as a departing gift. Even if a man divorces the wife, then Allah commands him with a departing gift. And this shows the goodness of Islam, whereby even after divorce, Allah Jalla wa Ala commands the man to give a departing gift to the woman that he has just divorced. Lakin the Mahallu Shahid is that Allah has said, each according to his ability, each according to his means. So for the person that's wealthy, then they should give something which is suitable to their means. And also for the person that is poor, they should give something which is suitable or befitting for their level of wealth. Also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said to him when she came to him and complaining about her husband not providing for her or giving her and her child enough provision, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to her, خُذِي مَا يَكْفِيكِ وَوَلَدِكِ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, take that which is enough for you and your child. So the Messenger ﷺ didn't specify a certain amount. He didn't say, mathalan, take 50 dinars. Or he didn't say you can't take more than 2 dinars. The Messenger ﷺ didn't specify what she should take. He gave her a general qa'idah, a general ruling, which is that which is enough for you. That which is considered the norm. That which is considered the norm. Right. So these are evidences for this qa'idah. These are evidences for this qa'idah. As for examples of this qa'idah, again, there are many. Lakin, مثلا, for example, when it comes to masail such as safar, traveling, some of the scholars say that as safar, the traveling hasn't been specified in the Sharia, or there's no hukum that is sarih specifying the journey, what we can consider as a journey. So the scholars say whether there's, and obviously we've studied on many occasions that there's a difference of opinion. Lakin, some of the scholars say that it goes back to the urf, the custom of the people. What is considered traveling? So it is not necessary that we look at the length or the time that it would take, but we look at what is considered traveling. And for example, sometimes to get from here to outside of London, from the east part of London, it may be easier for you to get to a different city than it would be to get to the other side of London, the west of London. So we're not looking at the time, like we're looking at what is considered goodness, or what is considered the custom. Likewise, when it comes to masail of provision, providing a nafaqa, a man providing for his wife, a man providing for his family, what is looked at is the custom of the people. So naturally, for example, if a man is married in the UK, his family is with him in the UK, the expenses that they use, the monthly expenditure may be more or maybe less than if he were to be living in a different country, in a different country, in a different part of the world, in a Muslim country, for example. The expenses may be different, the amount of money. It may be more here, it may be more here. Like it may be different. So for example, he can't have, if he's got a wife in living in a Muslim country and a wife living here, and they both got 2 children and this one's got 2 children, the expenses that he may send to this one may be more than the expenses that he has on this one, spends on this one. Or it may be the opposite. Like what is to be looked at is the custom. So they can't say you send $500 to your wife back home, so you need to give us $500. No. It may be that she requires more than $500. It may be that she requires less than $500. Again, that goes back to the custom. It goes back to the custom. Also, from the issues is that this qaida can be implemented is masail to do with nikah, ankiha. For example, the meher. The meher, the man is meant to pay what is considered normal in the community that they live in. So for example, if it's the norm to pay 4,000, 5,000, 3,000, between 3,000 and 5,000, then that is what is to be considered as meher mithal. For example, if they forget to put down a price for the meher, then that would probably be somewhere around the price or the amount that they would pay as a meher. Lakin, if they're living in a society where the meher is mathalan 1,000 to 2,000 pounds, that would be the norm, that would be the custom. So paying 10,000 would be extravagant and wrong. Like again, if you're living in a society where the norm is like 10,000 to start off with, to pay 1,000 is incorrect because it goes against the custom or the norm of the people. Right. Also, even when it comes to dressing, even when it comes to clothing, what people wear depends, as long as they don't contradict the Sharia, and we shall see this in the conditions, they can wear what they want or what is normal in their country, what is considered normal in their country. Well, if we look into the conditions, for this qaida, the first condition, أن يكون العرف مضطردا أي ظاهرا ومتكررا بين الناس. Number one, the first condition for this qaida to be implemented is that this custom or this norm or this tradition has to be widely practiced amongst and widely known amongst the mainstream community or the people living in that country. It has to be something which is always practiced, not just on a certain occasion. So if something mathalan was done during a certain period of the time, mathalan done in mathalan for 2020, for example, then later on you can't say that is the norm. You can't say that is the norm because maybe that was practiced because of a certain time. Like it has to be something which has always been practiced and always will be practiced, or something that is currently practiced, not something that was done for a specific reason or done by a certain community for a specific reason. Right. The second condition, أن يكون عاما فلا يكون في حي من أحياء البلد, that it has to be general, something which is practiced by everyone, not just something that's practiced by a person in a certain city or a group of people in a certain city. So if something mathalan is practiced in in a city in, I don't know, in the UK, we can't say that the norm in the UK is this, just based on what a few people practice in a certain city. So it has to be something which is the norm. Something which is the norm. And again, that also goes to communities and different cultures. Not only people living in one country, like a country in the United Kingdom, you've got people from all different walks of life. So it also goes back to their community, what they see as normal. For example, as I've mentioned before, when it comes to nikah, people have different practices for nikah. مثلا, in some communities, they do the nikah in the morning, or the nikah in the morning, and they have the walima at lunchtime, and then they have the wedding in the evening. In some cultures, they have the nikah ceremony, and the walima, and the party at one go. For example, from 1 p.m. from Dhuhr onwards till about 5 p.m. and everything's done. So again, that practice is perfectly legitimate, it's perfectly fine in the Sharia of Islam. And the practice of having the walima in the morning, the nikah ceremony in the morning, and at lunchtime having the walima, and in the evening, in the night time having the party, again, that's perfectly fine, as long as none of these contradict the Sharia of Islam. The third condition for this qa'idah, al-'urf, to be practiced, is that لا يخالف نصا شرعيا. It must not contradict and oppose a text from the Quran or the Sunnah. Because if it does, then it is invalid. It is batil. It is invalid. For example, we can't say, our norm is that during weddings, we play out music loud, or we have a mixed wedding. This is our norm, it's our culture. You can't say this. Why? Because this contradicts the Sharia. Also, you can't say, when it comes to issues like meher, for example, you can't say in our culture, the woman pays the man the meher. So he chooses how much he wants for his meher, 5,000, 6,000, and then he is given that. You can't say that. Why? Because this contradicts the Sharia, the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Messenger have legislated for this woman to receive meher from her husband. This custom contradicts this. Also, from the conditions is أن لا يعارضه تصريح كأن يصرح الزوج أنه سيعد. نعم. So the third condition, or the fourth condition, is that when it comes to the condition, or when it comes to the urf, the custom, it has to not, there cannot be a clear wording that contradicts this urf. So you've got this normal urf, or the custom or tradition practiced by everyone in this community, lakin it contradicts a clear-cut wording used by either parties. An example, مثلا, the meher, if it is the norm that the man delays the paying of the meher, it's the norm, مثلا, in this community, so in a certain community, so the man pays it 2, 3, 4, 5 years, or there's no rush to pay it, or it's usually paid just before someone divorces, or just when a person dies, and so on, from the tariqah, from that which he leaves behind. If that is the norm, that can be practiced. However, if the husband or the wife agree on a certain thing, such as the man says, I'm going to give you half of your meher now and half in 2 years' time, then we are restricted to the wording used by the husband, which is that he's going to pay half now and half in 2 years' time. Or the wife can say, I want my full meher in advance, I want it now. Perfectly legitimate, it's permissible for her to do so, to ask for this. Therefore, we don't look at the custom, we look at the wording specified in this aqd, in this contract, which is that he has to pay this meher in advance. So that's with regards to this qa'idah. The last qa'idah that we'll take for the day, the last qa'idah we'll take, inshallah, is the qa'idah of معاجل المحظور قبل آنه قد باء بالخسران مع حرمانه. We've taken this qa'idah we've studied this qaida when we were talking about innama a'malu binniyat. The one who hastens to do a forbidden act before its correct time, then he is punished with loss and being deprived of this actual thing, or the affair that he hastened. Who can give me an example of this qaida? Who can give me an example of this qaida? We've studied it on many occasions. Who can give me an example? Now, someone killing someone or their father may inherit as a son who kills his son. Now, so they may inherit. Now, this is an example of this qaida, whereby a person, a father, a son, is automatically meant to or going to inherit his father. Lakin, if he kills his father in order to inherit him, he will not inherit him. Why? Because the reason why he won't inherit him is because he has rushed to do something before its correct time. Before its correct time. Right. Also, an example that has been mentioned by one of the students is men wearing gold in this life. If a man wears gold or silk in this dunya without having a legitimate reason, a haja, a need, a necessity, then they will be punished by not wearing it in the hereafter. That is a punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لأنه استعجل هذا الشيء. Also, likewise, al-khamar, the person who drinks khamar, wal-iyadu billah, he استعجل هذا الشيء, so he will not be entitled to, he won't be drinking or given khamar in the hereafter. So that is an example, the khamar, لا يرث القاتل شيئا, the hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the qatil, the killer, will not inherit anything. Also, another example is a man divorcing his wife when he knows he's about to die. So, for example, he's got terminal illness and he's been given like 2-3 months to live, or maybe longer. And then he divorces his wife because he's always had problems with her. So he wants to prevent her from getting her share of the inheritance. So he divorces her. So if he was to divorce her, naturally she wouldn't get her inheritance, get his inheritance. Like, because he rushed it and he done it, then عُومِلَ بِنَقِيدِ قَصْدِهِ, as they say, he's been rewarded with the opposite of what he intended, which is that she inherits him. Kazalik, also from the examples that the scholars mention, is if a man, and this is extremely important, if a man marries a woman who is in her idda period, her waiting period. For example, a man marries a woman who is in her waiting period. Mathalan, her husband passed away, or she has been divorced. And then during her waiting period, another man marries her. And this is haram, because men are meant to wait for the idda period to end. If she's been divorced, then it's not permissible to marry her because she's currently the wife of another man. She's currently the wife of someone. And also, if her husband's passed away and she's a widow, she's meant to marry 4 months and 10 days. That is a hukum shari'i. So if a person marries her in this time, then he has contradicted or opposed this hukum. Some of the scholars say, and it's narrated by Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, I believe it was, that if he does so, he marries a woman in her iddah, abad and abad, it is haram for him to marry her, to ever marry her. It is not permissible to marry her again, even after she passes her iddah. Even after she passes her iddah. Right. We'll stop there, inshallah. We've only got about 15 lines or so left. So we should finish in the next 2 or 3 lessons, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, we finished all of the major principles. The rest of the principles are specific to certain masail, and we can finish them. We can finish them off, inshallah, within 2 or 3 lessons. And then I'll tell you, inshallah, what we're going to do after we finish this qaida, after we finish the manduma again. Right. Wallahu a'lam. If there are any questions, we've got about 2 or 3 minutes. Your mics are unmuted.
Assalamu alaikum,
Assalamu
alaikum. Just on the previous example, you mentioned the man that was terminally ill and he divorced his wife to deny her inheritance.
No.
What if during that period he divorced her legitimately? I mean, can it be proved that that was his intention, or is it just with his only with in his heart that it can be known that that was his intention?
They look at the Qawaa'id. They look at the supporting evidences, things that can point towards it. So it's not obviously in every case. Like if they've always had problems and he's always said that he was going to divorce her, and he's always intended to divorce her, and then obviously because now he's ill and he knows that he can't carry on living in the same house as her because obviously he fears for himself or so on, and then he divorces her. In that case, she won't inherit him, even if he divorces her within his terminal illness. So what is to be looked at is the supporting evidences. Some scholars say in general, under no circumstances does she inherit. Some say she will always inherit, and then some say you look at the case, the situation, and that obviously goes back to a qadi. But the general ruling that if a person rushes something that he was meant to be obviously entitled to, or this is also related to another qaida, al-mu'amalatu bin naqid qasd, a person being punished with the opposite of what he intended. So it's for a qadi to look at. If he denies it and there is evidence to prove what he's saying, to prove his claim, then she may not inherit in every case.
Okay, it's just a random thought.
Yeah. So hopefully, inshallah, when we do finish this mandum, we'll have a final exam, and then we'll start on our next book, inshallah, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And I'll tell you closer to the time. I will stop there, inshallah. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam wa ahkam wa billahi tawfiq. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.